Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the WCW Saturday Night Review Series for 1991. This is the um, February 16th edition of WCW Saturday Night. Again, we are almost done with 1991, what's available for 1991. Going back to 1990 here in the next little while, which should be interesting. I haven't seen the 1990 run all the way through. Actually, I have recently, but the point is, I'd never seen it before. Now, and again, kind of going forward here, um, it's an interesting run. Certainly, the WCW at the time was a very different promotion, having been in under the Turner banner for just about 2.5 years at this point in the journey, and it's just interesting to look forward there. Jack Victory versus Tommy Rich. Victory had come off of the previous year's run with the idea of several years in world class. Not a bad deal. Obviously, Jack Victory, kind of a guy that they're using. I think this is right around the time of the Secret Service gimmick, or soon thereafter. Tommy Rich, of course, having been a world champion before, but Rich not really having much of a directive here, and very basic maneuvers around. Attempted interference from other people, and Rip Morgan included, obviously. Jack Victor, Rip Morgan doing the Secret Service thing. Also, Tommy Rich implying that there was cheating involved. Rich goes to the outside. Rich certainly looks much different than he did the 9 years before. Rich gets nailed by Victory, sent to the outside. Morgan takes advantage of Rich being on the outside, clobbers him, and Jack Victory, pretty aggressive here, sends him into the canvas. Match worth going out of your way to see. Some degree of promos here, and ultimately there we go. We then get Big Josh, who jumps in from the crowd as a interference point. Then we get to the next in series of matches, the Steiner Brothers in an enhancement match here. Steiner Brothers at the time are your U.S. Tag Team Champions, so obviously they're not going to do anything less than win here. U.S. Tag Champs, of course, facing off against Bill Baker and Ron Cumberledge. Cumberledge, at the time, one of the guys who was doing enhancement work for both the WWF and WCW at the same time, or around the same time. Certainly not on the same day, but you get my point. Still doing enhancement work both sides. Rick Steiner, a very punch kick style. Obviously, the Steiner brothers at the time, your U.S. Tag Team Champions, basically secondary Tag Team Champions. The World Tag Team Champions have been due around the time. Steiner with a backbreaker on the outside of the ring. Steiner obviously sends his opponent back in and manages to get a pretty quick victory. The Steiner line, among other things, including the top rope DDT from the Steiners. 1, 2, 3, and away go. The Steiner Brothers, your U.S. Tag Team Champions. The wrestling wrap-up with Gordon Soley is here. They are plugging Wrestle War pretty hard. Wrestle War still doing the, I guess you'd say modified, WCW fan stuff. Wrestling wrap up, a pretty big deal. Dan Spivey here as a, in an enhancement match, taking on his adversary. Spivey taking on a enhancement talent and managing to hit the fallaway slam. Spivey with some pretty major power, having done a couple tours of Japan by this point, although not really having a clear definition of where he's going to go, and meaning for future, I guess you'd say, full-time career options, as he doesn't stay here very long. Danny Spivey, Chris Hahn is his opponent. Spivey hits a modified boss man slam and gets a victory. Sid Vicious and Stan Hansen versus Scott Allen and Jeff Anderson. Sid Vicious and Stan Hansen seems like what would have been on paper a decent tag team. They aren't really a regular team by this point, but they're also not so abnormal that they couldn't have done more with it. They obviously could have. They did not, obviously, and I think that would have been a really interesting tag team combination. Obviously, Sid's the guy they're trying to get over, coming in from Memphis around the time, always having done a pretty decent job in that area. Also, having been a horseman in the previous run there, Hansen, coming in off of Japan, in between Japan tours. Stan Hansen, obviously not a guy that you're going to build a lot around because he's not around a lot. Sid is the dominant individual in this one. Stan Hansen, though, does hit the lariat. Sid sends his opponent to the outside and nails a power driver, power bomb, and Sid gets a quick victory there. Sid is a guy that they are certainly looking to or thinking to meander about. And then we go to the Z-Man Tom Zink and Bobby Eaton here. Probably the first truly competitive match of the show. Tom Zink defeats Bobby Eaton in the match. And I mean, very basic match. Worth going out of your way to see, though, if you like either guy. Or if you just like matches that tell decent enough stories. The match isn't anything necessarily that has a lot going on with it. Eaton kind of lost after the ending of the Midnight Express, but he's still around, and they're trying to find something for him to do. Zink manages to hit a couple of shots along the way. Hip toss and by Eaton. Zink fires up, hits a couple arm drags and basic maneuvers along the manor. And deep arm bars and other basic things here, and ultimately, interference from Terrence Taylor, trying to get a distraction. Taylor trying to get into things with Bobby Eaton and Tom Zink as he goes on to be a heel who interferes with both guys, interfering with the match, also leading to Zink getting the victory via disqualification. Then we move to the next in series of matches here, and that becomes a Barry Windham match. Barry Windham, of course, one of the four horsemen at the time. Arn Anderson on the outside in cargo pants. Never thought I'd see that, but did see that here. Windham takes on Ricky Nelson, takes him down in a really quick foray into things here. Nothing necessarily worth taking major stock of as a series of matches. Barry Windham, of course, hits the lariat and the attempted superplex, gets a victory there. Then we move to Sting and WCW US Champion Lex Luger, Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, and James Earl Wright. Sting and Luger, friends at the time. Sting and Luger also both having been, I believe, US Champion by this point. Sting, kind of there in a consistent run at, trying to get to the top. He kind of been in that role since the Clash of Champions 1988. James Earl Wright and Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, the State Patrol, get double clotheslined by Luger. Luger also hits the arm drags and a couple of torture racks, actually a sunset flip, which for Luger is a pretty major thing. Sting nails the Scorpion Deathlock and gets the victory there. I think Sting is probably seen as a guy who ultimately is going there. They are getting ready for the Wrestle War thing in a couple of weeks. Rip Rogers and Dustin Rhodes. Rhodes in for a couple of years in the sport, that is, in WCW pretty recently, since he ultimately had just been in the Royal Rumble less than a month before. So interesting there that Rhodes is already on WCW TV. Rip Rogers takes a couple hip tosses from Rhodes' dropkick under the chin and eventually the Flying Bulldog. Rhodes is there because his father's the booker and Dusty had left previously. Clothesline by Dustin Rhodes, pretty simply put, and ultimately managing to get a pretty basic maneuver there. We get Paulie dangerously listening to Ric Flair cut promos. Flair promises to be in control of WCW Championship for quite a while. El Gigante cuts a promo with Paul Heyman. Gigante says he's basically going to get Flair, going to take care of Flair and get rid of Flair once and for all. Missy Hyatt and Paulie dangerously having bits and pieces of issues here as well. And then we go to Flying Brian Pillman against Randy Starr. Starr manages to do what he can, where he can, and ultimately Pillman manages to get things in a Indian Deathlock style maneuver. Pillman tries to get advantages where he can, kind of dropping back on the ankle and leg. Starr takes over a little bit, but Pillman remains in control. Pillman gets out of the way of a big splash. Pillman then goes to the top rope, hitting a flying clothesline and getting the victory, kind of the air Pillman thing without the springboard aspect, and Pillman gets a quick victory there. Tag team champions are Doom. Doom is about to break up in the next little while here. Doom, of course, with Teddy Long. It's Ron Simmons and Butch Reed, of course, is Doom, and they are pretty aggressive. Ron Simmons hits a gut buster along the way there. Doesn't necessarily get everything he wants, but gets enough, and ultimately we see Ron Simmons is in complete control, Doom dominant of the two enhancement talents that are in front of them, which happens to be, let's see here. And again, they're tag team champions, haven't lost the championships quite yet, defeating Mark Merrow and Greg Sawyer. Yes, that Mark Merrow. And again, Doom is in control completely going forward. They are going into continued battles with the Horsemen, or had been, and we'll be back with more right after this.